But as we continue on with this concept of details, let me point out that there are times when God does provide details. Amen. Every now and then the Lord will answer our questions. Every now and then the Lord will tell us what's going on. I'm reminded of God's conversation with Moses at the burning bush in Exodus 3. Moses sees a bush that's on fire and not being consumed by the fire, and so he investigates. And while he's investigating, God starts calling his name. God tells Moses that he has heard the cries of his people in Egypt and that he was going to deliver them. And in order to do so, he would send Moses. Moses is caught off guard. He's like, hold up now. You got my number? You talking to me? You want me to go over there and talk to that Pharaoh over there? He ghetto as I don't know what. And you want me to go over there? And God's like, I said what I said. I'm talking to you. But Moses immediately starts with excuses. I'm slow to speech. What if they don't listen to me? Who do I tell them sent me? You've chosen the wrong messenger. What am I supposed to do? And yet God had an answer for every single one of Moses' questions. God had a response for everything that Moses said. I am who I am. I am will certainly be with you. Tell them that I am has sent you. The God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will teach you what to say. Use the rod that's in your hand. Go and tell Pharaoh, let my people go. And this shows us that while God sometimes doesn't provide details up front, there are other times in which he does. There are other times in which God will answer our questions and explain his intentions. But I raise this because there's a necessary truth about God that all of us must realize, and that is that God is not required to explain himself. Let me say that again for the people in the back. God is not required to explain himself. God answers to nobody. God can do what he wants, when he wants, and how he wants. And if he doesn't want to do anything at all, he's entitled to that too. So if God chooses to answer our questions, then we ought to be grateful, because at no point is God required to answer anything that we ask. God don't owe nobody no thing. I never do this, but look at somebody next to you and be like, God don't owe nobody no thing. Amen. Thank you so much. But at no point is God required. God was not required to answer Moses. He could have just said go and stop talking. Jesus was not required to answer his disciples. He could have just said go and stop talking. And family, God is not required to answer you or I. God is sovereign. God is sovereign, meaning that he has full, complete, and absolute control. His name alone commands reverence and respect. His presence alone demands reverence and respect. The songwriter said it like this: angels bow before him, heaven and earth adore him. What a mighty God we serve. But the question is, do we trust this mighty God? And one thing I've learned in my life is that it's easy to trust God when everything makes sense. It's easy to trust God when we have every answer. It's easy to trust God when we understand every move and can explain every mystery. It's easy to trust God when we have all of the details. Because in those moments, there's no need for any real faith. Why? Because we already got all the answers. We already know what's about to happen. So what's the need of having faith? If you know when your bills are going to be paid, if you know when you're going to be healed, if you know when you're going to get your next meal, if you know when you're going to get married, if you know when your family is going to straighten up, if you know the answers to all of these questions that keep you up late at night, you don't need any faith because your answer's right there. But the test of the faith comes when you don't got no answer to no questions, when those problems keep following you around, when days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months and months turn into years. Can you still trust God when you ain't got no details? And God is not going to put us in a position where our faith is useless. Did y'all hear that? God is not going to put us in a position where our faith is useless. God is not going to leave us somewhere where our faith is worthless, but he's going to make sure that our faith is strong. And in order for faith to be strong, it needs to be tested. It needs to be exercised. It needs to be used. I've heard it said like this: a faith that has not been tested is a faith that cannot be trusted. A faith that has not been tested is a faith that cannot be trusted. And the reality is that the true test comes when literally nothing makes sense. When we have no idea what's happening, when life is seemingly getting harder and harder and there's no end in sight. That is the true test of our faith. Because anybody can trust God when nothing's going wrong. Anybody can trust God when they're happy all the time. But God is not impressed with a faith that is only intact when things are going well. God's not impressed with a faith that can only say amen when you know everything is going all right. But it's the faith that can say amen while you're crying. It's the faith that can say amen when your account's in the negative. It's the faith that can say amen when people stab you in the back. It's a faith that can say, God, you are still good, even though I have no idea what you're doing. That's the faith that impresses our God. And family, hear me. It matters how we handle the storm. It matters how we handle trials and tribulations. It matters how we handle waiting seasons. It matters how we handle inconvenience. It matters how we handle setbacks. And God is telling us today, I'm not just watching how you act when you get what you want, but I'm also paying attention to how you act when life starts lifing. Can you handle it when it gets rough?